Hello, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we'll be doing another manga review. Today we'll be looking at Mashle, arc number 5, which starts at the very end of volume 5. It goes through volume 6, into volume 7, past volume 8, and finishes here at the early stages of volume 9. And it's a pretty good arc. The premise for this part of the story is that the Divine Visionary Tournament has been moved up ahead of time in order to get more powerful people to fight against Innocent Zero now that they're escaped from prison. Although, if you really think about it, the point of the Divine Visionary exam is to get the strongest kid recognized as a person and then given responsibilities so that they can provide for society, right, with their immense power. Moving up the test doesn't really allow you to have a new powerful person, because this kid is now 3 or 4 or 5 or however long months behind where they should have been because you moved up the exam. And so they're really not prepared, physically, emotionally, and power-wise to deal with the situation if you've not let them grow enough, right? So I think it's a bad plot line, I think it's an illogical thing to do IRL, but it is a good enough plot point for the story, right? So, yeah, and so the Divine Visionary Tournament has been moved up. They have to compete in it now, and they have to face off against this guy called Margaret Macaron, who is more or less the most powerful guy so far, because every arc we get introduced to a guy who is above and beyond and the most powerful person ever, and then consecutively they just get, shown up by someone else that's more powerful than them, right? So, that is more or less the basic premise of the story, although it does change up kind of halfway through the story, and it's quite good. So, yeah, the plot line here is starting off with an introduction for Margaret. Then Mash and his friends bond over, hanging out at his house and having his father or his grandfather kind of talk to them and be like, yeah, my son grew up by himself. He didn't really have any friends, and there wasn't really anyone he could interact with, so I am so happy that he got to go to school and meet all of you, and please take care of him because he has no magic, and he needs all the help he can get, right? And so it's really, really good. I really enjoyed that part. It was a very emotional moment that I really enjoyed because it kind of shows you how lonely Mash was and how his life has changed very positively, even though he is more or less facing more strife than ever before, right? So it's quite good. Then they get summoned somewhere, I think, and then they start the exam and tournament thing, and there's 3 parts to it. The first part already happened, which is the coin game. The second part is what's starting now, and they get introduced to this guy called Carpaccio, and the first event of this part of the story is the Dead Revenant Keys game, which is these kind of like goat-headed guys that are undead revenant characters fighting around with the students, and they're trying to stop them from gathering these keys from these like magic balloons, right? So yeah, the second event should be this crystal protection battle where the students that survive the first event are given crystals, and they're formed into teams, and each team has to remove the crystals from the other team in order to win. And then the third event is a one-on-one set of battles, but it doesn't really happen that well because of plotline situations, right? So the first event was pretty good. I quite liked it. There's this guy who joined up with Mash, who is from the same house as him, but he initially started off really sketchy, and then he ended up being a good guy, so I'm very happy that my intuition was wrong with that guy. Event number 2 was pretty good. It was actually really, really enjoyable because this is the first time that Finn really does anything meaningful in terms of like standing up for Mash. And I really enjoyed this part here where he faces off against Carpaccio, but Carpaccio is significantly stronger than him, like very strong. And so he destroys Finn. But Mash shows up in the nick of time, and he steps up to protect his friend, and he provides this kind of like connection to Finn as a moment of strength that changes Carpaccio's viewpoint, and I really, really enjoy that fight a lot. Then, before the third event starts, this Divine Visionary named Gehenna, I can't remember his first name, decides to walk into the locker room and do an extra task on Mash in order to see if Mash is good enough or not. Mash manages to complete his quest with this guy, and so the guy leaves him alone and lets him continue on to the next situation, right? Which is the one-on-one battles. So Mash versus Margaret is a very badass fight. I really, really enjoyed it, and I thought it was very, very enjoyable. I'm not going to really go into detail, though, because it does end up kind of stopping halfway, I guess, because very similar to the Triwizard tournament, the ending of the tournament can't happen because the main bad guy, and isn't Zero in this case, crashes the exam in order to attack and to try to get Mash, because it's been revealed that Mash is the youngest son of Innocent Zero and the final piece in Innocent Zero's plan. He is this person that has hyper awareness of his physical state, who has hyper physical abilities compared to everyone else, and so Innocent Zero wants to take his body, kind of like Orochimaru, in order to become the perfect being. So it's very interesting. And before Innocent Zero can do anything, Wahlberg steps in, and they have a very badass battle where Wahlberg is basically Father Time, and Innocent Zero is the master of space, and so space and time fight and collide, and it's really, really badass, and it's very, very interesting, and it was a really, really great fight. While that's happening, Mash and his friends fight other members of the Zero team, and they are more or less winning, which is kind of interesting, because you would think that all of the children of Innocent Zero, all of the people that follow him, would be top high-level characters, right? So they would be equivalent to Divine Visionaries, and none of Mash's classmates are at that level, even though a lot of them could be Divine Visionaries under the right circumstances, right? So overall, I think it just has to be good for, they have, the good guys have to win for the sake of the story, but it works out pretty well. I quite liked it. I thought it was a really, really good set of battles here, right? So, yeah, and then the final moments of the arc are basically this final comedy routine between all the characters in order to transition into the next part of the story, right? So, yeah, in terms of characters, we get Gehenna and Margaret. We have Ortel and this guy called Max, who have all been introduced before, but basically become relevant again here. Then we have Wahlberg being a badass, and we get to see a lot of his backstory, how he was basically best friends with Innocent Zero, and how they were both taught by this guy called Adam, who is basically the creator of the modern system in their society. And we get to learn that Cell War is Mash's older brother, and that he is one of Innocent Zero's children, but he happens to be one that apparently manages to continue to fail and fail and fail, and so another one of his younger brothers kind of picks on him because he is this kind of loser within the organization, even though he's generally pretty badass in the real world, right? In the, interacting with normal people, which is quite good. World building wise, we get introduced to three-liners, and I guess technically Dot would be one of these because he has that cross star thing, and he has one line on his cheek, so 1 + 2, that would be 3 lines, but it doesn't really seem to function the same way because three-liners are different. They're basically god-level people, and they have the ability to summon these legendary canes, or more or less they're like special wands that have legendary status that pick them, and so when they're picked, that awakens a third line into their bodies, right? So it's kind of interesting. It doesn't really matter too much how the mechanics work. The point is that there's more than 2 lines, and there's probably going to be 4 and 5 liners as well, just because might as well, right? And we get introduced to the concept of thirds, which are the highest high-level spells that you can make. We get introduced to the strongest type of magic, which is dark magic, which is wielded by Adam. We get time and space magic as well. We get this kind of unleashing of magic, which changes Margaret's appearance from a male to a little girl, I think. And there's this kind of, modern world based on the ideals of Adam, which is something we get introduced to already. And I think they also introduce the idea of summoning the gods that reside within their wands, right? So the way it seems to work is that each wand is created and it takes on the quality of a certain god. And if you have enough connection and power to your wand, you can use this wand to summon an aspect of your god, right? So depending on your personal magic and the type of magic that your wand is made with, you can summon a different character, right? It doesn't seem to be only one god per wand, so I can see a lot of characters having the same god, but calling on different aspects of them, right? Because most like gods, if you want to look at like the Greek ones, were generally thought of as the god of one thing, but they actually had a lot of things in their purview, right? Like the god of the ocean, Neptune, or what was the other name for him? Poseidon. He's not really just the god of the ocean. He's the god of the earthquakes and the god of the earth, and he's the god of horses, and he's the god of sea foam, and all a bunch of random shit, right? So if you look at it in that sense, one god could really connect to a bunch of different wands, and so you could have battles where the two wand wielders are actually taking on the same god, but different aspects of them. So it's pretty interesting how that works. And most of this is conjecture because it's not really that well explained. But the god characters are really, really cool. So I like that a lot. In terms of artwork and fan service, it's a really amazing bit of artwork here most of the time. Anytime there's a summon or a third or a second, it looks really badass. And there is still no fan service, so this is still a pretty safe story for people that are not interested in having any fan service in their manga. So, good job on that, I guess. And ratings-wise, it's a 5 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed my time with this, and it was really, really awesome. So, that's it. I think this is going to be it for Mashle arcs for the time being, because the next arc doesn't end until well into Volume 12, and I don't even have Volume 11 yet, so it's going to be a while before I get around to collecting that. So, it's going to be probably 4 or 5 months before I get back to Mashle, so I hope you guys are tied over with the 5 videos that I made so far. So, yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought down below, and thank you guys once again. See you guys later.